Hey, what is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe, host of the Dr. Vibe Show, also producer of the Dr. Vibe Show, also host and co-producer of the Goodman Project Show at the Goodman Project Show, one of the most viewed sites in the world for men. And doing something new, just seeing how it goes. We have Brenden back on, Brenden Whitted, who's been on the show already twice.
Yes,
So
sir.
quick. I'm telling you, but we were just rapping and saying, Dr. Vibe doesn't get a chance to talk about sports that often. And so I said to Brenden, hey, let's do some rapping about sports. Couldn't find a good title, so we're just calling it the Sports Vibe. And we don't know how long this is going to go for, as long as we want it to go for, and hopefully, and we're speaking, there'll be an audience for it. We're just going to be chatting and rapping about vibing about different sports news events, etc. So, Brendan, thanks again for making the time to
Oh,
share,
thanks
as
for having me.
always. And tell a little bit about yourself to the audience.
Well, you can catch me at 6:20 a.m. The Buzz. I do sports radio for the Sports Shop. You can catch me every Saturday from 9 to 11 a.m. I'm also the host of a podcast. You can catch it on iTunes. He's the producer. I'm the host, and I also do a few different things in terms of writing. This is actually how we connected. I was on Ebony.com for talking about Black athlete activism, so I do a little freelance writing as well.
Excellent. Well, this is good stuff. So let's jump off. First conversation piece on the first edition of the Sports Vibe. What were your thoughts on last week's NFL games?
It was really exhilarating to watch Russell Wilson really come into his own late in that game. The Packers and Seahawks, it seems like whenever they get together, there's always going to be something going down. If it's the Hail Mary or if it's this last second, last minute heroic comeback that Seattle embarked on. Green Bay controlled the game pretty much the entire duration. The first 55 minutes, they were unbelievable and really got Seattle out of this game. They had a ton of turnovers. Russell Wilson threw 4 picks early on, a couple that just ricocheted off of wide receivers' hands. They just, for whatever reason, Seattle could not keep it going. They couldn't sustain any drives, link together any continuous plays. Green Bay's defense isn't really known for anything in particular, not even takeaways, but they were able to get them out of their comfort zone, got them away from the run early. And really it looked like it was going to be an open and shut case. And then fourth quarter rolls around and you get a fake field goal. You get the first ever punter that throws a touchdown in the playoffs, and you get just this crazy last 5 minutes of regulation where Green Bay can't move the ball. They kick it. Seattle goes down, gets a touchdown, 2-point conversion, just gets themselves back in the game. Green Bay actually, come to their credit, they come back and get a field goal to tie it, and then Russell Wilson closes the show with a touchdown pass to Kurtz. I mean, it was after 55 minutes of one team dominating the other. It was crazy to watch the last few minutes of this contest.
What were to you the 2 or 3 key plays in the Seattle comeback?
Well, I know a lot has been made about Mike McCarthy and the coach of the Green Bay Packers not going for it when he was in the red zone. I really didn't have a problem with that. Look, you're going up against a really, really tough defense. You had a couple cracks right on the goal line, and you didn't get it. Kick the field goal, and you get the points. You take the lead. This is the playoffs. The points are at a premium, so you take whatever points are going to be available. And if Green Bay doesn't lose that game, no one's talking about how he kicks the field goals. I think really what hurt him was, I mentioned it earlier, the fake field goal. The fake field goal only works and it only results in a touchdown because they were going for a field goal block. What Green Bay really should have been in that situation, they were up to 16-0. What they really needed to do was prevent that specific play from happening. They needed to be in a field goal safe situation. That's what they should have called. They went out for the all-out block, which allowed a tight end to leak out in the back and catch a touchdown, which nobody saw coming. Pete Carroll is known for his special teams antics. So that really counts. If you're going to start nitpicking in terms of what Mike McCarthy should have done or should not have done, that kind of goes to it. So that was one huge play that just kept Seattle even within shouting distance in that game. The second is after Russell Wilson throws his final interception of the game, after they intercepted, Barnett actually goes down. The intercepting party is Barnett. He actually goes down at the behest of Julius Peppers, one of his teammates, because pretty much the game is for all intents and purposes over. Is what they're thinking. That's why you go down. You go down after an interception because you don't want to turn the ball back over, and you're thinking that this game is well within hand. Well, what then Mike McCarthy again decides to do is 3 straight runs with Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy had had some success running against Seattle, but in that situation, you want to get a first down and you want to run your 4-minute offense so that you're the only team that still has possession of the ball late in that game. 3 straight runs. They actually end up losing yardage, so they're not even in field goal range.
Yeah.
And they punt the ball away, a poor punt, and gives Russell Wilson and that Seattle Seahawks just a little bit of life. I mean, they still had a lot of work that they needed to do. They still had to get an onside kick that everybody saw Bostic on Green Bay, saw him flub it. But that just gave them a little bit more life, and they come, and to Seattle's credit, they come right back down and score. And what I thought was really, really interesting on that particular drive, they don't go away from the run. They kept their zone read. They kept feeding Marshawn, and to have that kind of confidence in a multiple possession game with 4 or 5 minutes to go in a game that you're down and still continue to run, that shows a lot of confidence in your running back and a lot of confidence in your running game, and credit to Pete Carroll for that.
Did Green Bay choke or did Seattle win it?
I think a lot of times, especially in sports media, we're always looking for somebody to blame. Like, you didn't do this. You're at fault for this. I mentioned Mike McCarthy, where I thought maybe he wasn't aggressive enough, or maybe too aggressive in the field goal block situation. But I thought Seattle went out and won that game. That was a tight game, and you could say that one play or this play, what if this happens? Sure, but you could also say that what about the two interceptions that Green Bay garnered off of tip balls that hit their wide receivers in the hands? I mean, sports is one of those very, very interesting. It's the most real reality show in the fact that things are always changing. It's very unscripted, so you never know what's happening. I thought that Seattle stayed in that game mentally as much as physically, and just eked out the win. They are the defending Super Bowl champions, and they're champions for a reason.
Absolutely. Well, let's slide on to the New England-Indianapolis game, or what game that was. There's more news about after the game than during the game, but let's talk a little bit about the game itself.
Yeah, this game turned out about how I felt that it would. We saw pretty much this exact same game go on earlier in the season. The Patriots thumped the Colts during the regular season. They thumped them in the playoffs. Yeah. The Colts simply didn't have the defensive capabilities to stop that Patriot offense, and LeGarrette Blount 4 touchdowns. I mean, he just absolutely ran over him. LeGarrette Blount this time reprising the role of Jonas Gray, but they just didn't have anything for him. Andrew Luck didn't look particularly good in this situation. It's going to be interesting what they're going to do to put around him. I think Luck is a very, very good quarterback. He'll need a little bit more help, especially on the defensive end. I think his wide receivers are pretty good, especially with Dante Moncrief and T.Y. Hilton. They've got some young talent there. They've got to figure out what they're doing on the offensive line because they've struggled somewhat to run the ball consistently. They're going to be hurt by the fact that they made that trade to Trent Richardson and they traded a first-round pick, so that's going to hurt them moving down the line. But I don't see any problems with the Colts. You'll see them plenty of times between the talent that they currently have and that division not being particularly strong. You'll see them plenty moving forward. But
do they have the talent to compete against New England's, against the Denvers, etc.? That's the thing, because nothing against Andrew Luck. He doesn't have much of a team around him. He is carrying that team. He
does carry that team. I think Luck is extremely talented. I actually would still pick Russell Wilson ahead of him because despite Russell Wilson's 4 interceptions, he's a lot less likely to turn the ball over. Andrew Luck, between his fumbles and his interceptions, he's one of the highest, had some of the most pick sixes for the regular season. But I think that there's enough talent I think that he has enough talent to carry them to a certain extent, but the defense, it's really, to me, what they're really lacking is a defense in order to hold them. They can't, you can't be in a situation where you always have to be in shootouts in order to win games, especially in the playoffs. You're going up against a higher caliber of competition on a more regular basis. They'll be fine. They just have to get it going on defense, and I think you'll see Luck plenty. There's not a lot in the between the Titans and the Jaguars, and the Texans were a little bit better this year, but you'll see the Colts plenty. I'm not worried about them at all.
Well, let's stay on field. Now, obviously, most people had New England going to the Super Bowl. Who do you think will give a better contest for New England? Seattle who won or Green Bay who lost?
I think it'll be Seattle. Seattle's defense. So so you have this extra week between games now, so you get to develop all these narratives. And one that's kind of emerging slowly is this Seattle Seahawks defense is one of the best we've seen. You can compare it to, if you want to go 85 Bears and win 15-1 in the regular season and ended up winning that title, or if you want to go the first Baltimore Ravens incarnation, I think it was around 2001, where they picked up the Super Bowl. You're not comparing them to a lot, because this is an upper echelon elite type of defense, and they're doing it in a different way. Most of those earlier defenses that were, Steel Curtain or something like that from the Steelers, that was up front. You saw those big uglies, the defensive linemen really get after the quarterback and really change everything around. But for Seattle's got a solid defensive front seven, but really where they make their money is in that back seven. Is in that back secondary, where you got Richard Sherman, Thomas, Cam Chancellor. Like you see these magnificent athletes back there, and they're not only ball hawks, but fantastic in terms of stopping yards after catch. You're not doing a lot of big plays or short completions that end up in big plays, as Denver found out last year in the Super Bowl. Everything was in front, they stopped, and then they make you go the entire length of the field. They're very, very special that way, and they're all, if they're healthy. Now Thomas and Richard Sherman suffered injuries, so we're going to have to figure out exactly how healthy they are. So if they're both healthy, I think that they're going to give I think that they're going to give Tom Brady and the Patriots fits, because as good as the Patriots are, beyond Rob Gronkowski, there's not a lot that scares you on the outside. Edelman is very, very good, and so is Amendola. But in terms of one-on-one matchups, I side with Seattle. So it's going to be really, really interesting watching that particular battle take place.
Okay, so it's time to get off the field. Deflategate. What are your thoughts? What do you think about it? What do you think about Belichick's press conference yesterday? What do you think about Tom Brady's press conference yesterday? The whole thing. Give it to us. I never thought that this would be a conversation topic. Like, I didn't know before this week. I didn't know that the 12.5 to 13.5 psi was what in regulation football inflating was. I didn't know any of this. I wasn't even sure. Wasn't even sure about quarterbacks liking a different level of inflation for their ball in terms of how it throws. Look, this is kind of a mess for the NFL, because we're talking about the integrity of the game. You can downplay it if you would like to, but you're talking about wins and losses. And while a lot of people are making this statement, correctly so, that Indianapolis Colts game wasn't close. No, it wasn't. It wasn't close at all. But that Baltimore Ravens game was. And so if you get caught cheating one time, well, then in my mind, I'm just, as a fan, I'm going to necessarily go back and say, well, wait, were you cheating the week before when you won by 4 points? Like, that game's a lot more important to me, because now, well, maybe it didn't affect the game that was a blowout, but in the one possession game, it is pretty important if you're starting to manipulate the actual materials with which you play the game. Moreover, it's the Patriots, and the Patriots have already had this kind of thing hanging over them with Spygate and taping opposition's practices, and then once that whole thing came out, Goodell looks at the tapes and then burns them, so that makes it even more conspiracy theory. So it doesn't seem like this team that is so well coached, that just does everything seemingly on the field at least the right way, that they would even need to do this. But then the question has to come, well, why would you do it? No one cheats for the sake of cheating. If you're cheating, then there's a reason for it, and there's a reason behind it. So the NFL has launched an investigation. They're apparently talking to a myriad of people. But that's another point. And with Brady's press conference yesterday, he was asked, had the NFL spoken to him? They hadn't spoken to him yet. Like, it's almost a week.
Yeah, I don't understand that, and to me it feels like they don't really want to know the answer, because you hear the reports about that. Well, we talked to 40 people. I'm gonna be honest with you. You don't really need to talk to 40 people. Like, there's a small number of people that you need to talk to, because there's the chain of custody for these footballs isn't a laundry list of people. It's a few people that would be, one, able to, and two, willing to change these and inflate or deflate these balls as necessary. So just go ask the people, go ask the equipment people, go ask Tom Brady. I mean, this is, to me, if you wanted to find out what was going down, it wouldn't take a week. It doesn't take this long if you wanted to do this. Now, having these questions right before the Super Bowl, I'm sure is the last thing that Goodell would want. This is the crown jewel of really all sports. It's a one-day event that really spans 2 weeks. I mean, it's amazing that we all know about the commercials and how that if the commercials themselves have become an event, that's how big the Super Bowl is. So the last thing you want to do is have somebody worried about the integrity of the game and whether or not one of the participants is cheating. This looks real to me. It looks really bad. Even if the product on the field hasn't suffered, it looks really bad in terms of a PR statement for the NFL.
Good stuff. Did you have a chance to either watch or listen to the press conferences that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady had yesterday?
I did. I listened to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. I was actually at work, but it sounded so less so Belichick. Belichick always kind of sounds like a droll. Like he never really. He's always kind of just out of it. That's his thing. He's always kind of detached. I was a little surprised that he went straight to just ask Tom Brady. That was essentially, to paraphrase all the things that he said. It was ask Tom Brady. I don't know. Which, is fair because I can understand a head coach not being concerned with how inflated the balls are. As much of a micromanager as he is, I can understand him not necessarily having anything to do with that. Now, when you got to Tom Brady, again, I didn't see it, but I did hear it, and it sounded like he was nervous, like in a very weird way, which is weird for fans to hear Tom Brady in anything other than the cool, calm, collected. Even after losses, he's always, very relaxed, very chill. He sounded very uneasy the entire time he was there, and pretty much his message was, "I don't know anything." And that was a little disappointing, especially considering that Belichick had pretty much lopped it all in his plate, and lopped it all in Tom Brady's plate, saying, "I don't know anything." Ask the quarterback. The quarterback gets up there and says, "I don't know anything at all." Maybe an equipment manager, and that was pretty much it. So I thought when Belichick called out Brady, honestly, to be honest, I thought they had a conversation about what was going to be said, something more than, "I don't know." I thought they would give us some sort of clarification. The fact that it just seems seedy. That doesn't play well for them at all. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of, there's been talk about draft picks or cap room or a fine, or I'm not exactly sure what the punishment from the NFL would be, but it doesn't look good at all, especially on the precipice of your biggest event.
What do you think should happen to the Patriots in this? Depending what the NFL finds, but it sounds like it's a foregone conclusion that did happen. What do you feel should happen to the Patriots on this?
I to be complete, and I know I'm supposed to have a very strong opinion on this. It's hard to determine how important this rule is. If you listen to one person, Matt Leinart, former NFL quarterback and now an NFL analyst for a TV organization, he says it's not a big deal at all. That this kind of thing is nonsense, and that sports media in general is making a bigger deal out of it than it should be. Talk to Mark Brunell, an analyst for ESPN, a former NFL quarterback.
Yeah, he's really strong about it.
Exactly. He's like, this is a very, very big deal. This is a problem. This should have never happened. So I can't quite understand. I thought Mike Wilbon did a really, really good job of coming up with an analogy. He said, "I don't know if this is murder or if this is just speeding." You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to determine how big it is, because if you're talking about something that is a real important material factor in whether or not they move forward or not, maybe not in the Colts game, but in the Baltimore game, then you have to have some real serious repercussions. I mean something more than taking a 6th-round draft pick next year. Like, if you're talking about seriously cheating, something that materially affected whether or not they won or lost that one-possession game versus the Ravens, because I can't believe you would start cheating against the Colts but not cheat. I just don't believe. I'm not going there. Man, you got to talk about something serious, like somebody getting suspended for a year or something. If you're talking about something that really did affect. Now, if you're talking about something that is just fodder for sports media during this kind of week-long lull between games, then a slap on the wrist fine and a draft pick next year is completely fine. But trying to determine how important this whole thing is, that's what I really would like to get to the bottom of, and I'm not sure we'll get that anytime soon.
Do you think this will have any effect on New England's preparation for the Super Bowl?
No, absolutely not. I think if maybe another organization you would be worried about it. This team's been to the Super Bowl, they've been to the playoffs. This is old hat for them. They are very very comfortable in this situation. Their whole thing is no outside noise. That has always been their calling card is, we are focused. We're focused on the team in front of us. We're not worried about any winning streak. We're not worried about a losing streak. We're not worried about what the other team does. We're worried about what we're doing in preparation. And so maybe if this were another team, a team that without the kind of pedigree that they have, but I have no doubt that we're going to get New England's best shot come next Sunday.
All right, let's vibe about the NBA. A number of interesting stories going on there. I think the most hot story right now is, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but Kobe Bryant, rotator cuff surgery and being out for the rest of the season. What should he come back?
Well, look, he's going to be making $20+ million next year. I would be shocked if he left that on the table. I mean, I know these guys are multi-millionaires, but $23 million is $23 million. So I do think he'll be back, and even more so than that, Kobe Bryant isn't the kind of guy that wants to go out like that. He's going to want to go out playing basketball. He's not going to want to go out on the injured reserve list. So he said he's making a decision whether or not now he's going to go take surgery or rehab it. Everybody that has had the surgery says it is a beast to come back from, and at his age, it's going to be extremely difficult because this is the third major injury he's had in pretty much the last 3 or 4 years. So he's really struggling to get back. He's obviously on his last legs in the winter of his career. I'm not a big Kobe fan, to be completely honest with you, but nobody wants to see him go out like this. He's one of the best players ever, a top 10 player, probably the second best shooting guard we've ever seen. So it's tough to watch him go. It's rough. You know what's funny, because between him and Jeff Gordon now stepping down as a full-time racer, I'm starting to feel a little old. This is getting a little rough for me, man.
What about LaMarcus Aldridge? Out for a few weeks. Hand injury, thumb injury. Serious.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Now, that Western Conference, it's like Gotham City, man. There are villains everywhere. You cannot lose a step there. Like last night they lost to Boston. They would never have lost to Boston with LaMarcus Aldridge, who is arguably the best power forward in the game right now. Certainly one of the best offensive power forwards in the game. It's going to be really, really difficult for them. I know they have Damian Lillard, but Batum is also hurt. Robin Lopez, their starting center, he's out for a little while. They've got some real injury concerns, and if you backslide at all, I mean, 2 or 3 a rough week in the Western Conference, and you could be out of the playoff contention. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they bounce back. I'm hoping that he'll get back. They got the All-Star break coming up, so at least he'll miss less games than he would have normally. But still, 6 to 8 weeks is a really long time to miss, and hopefully we'll still get a chance to see them in the playoffs. And you could easily end up. I mean, San Antonio Spurs are 7th right now, and they're the defending champions. I mean, it's really kill or be killed over there. And you got Oklahoma City outside looking in, trying to get into that top 8 too. So anything can happen in that Western Conference. So that's going to be really, really interesting to look at.
Good stuff. Somewhat comparable to when Kevin Durant was out for the first few weeks in this season for Oklahoma City, and look what it did for them in the Western Conference. So it'll be very interesting. What were your thoughts on the NBA All-Star starters?
Well, Kobe actually got voted into.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was. I mean, look, he's got that kind of cachet. You let fans vote, and look, he's obviously not going to play, but you know what? It's not bad. It's not a terrible thing. I don't think he was going to play anyway. But it was at least nice. I guess the fans are kind of giving him his send off with another All-Star. I love the All-Star game because to me it's the game that's most adaptable to an All-Star game, because it's kind of a pickup game. It's them just kind of playing, them just kind of going to get it. They took away the center position, even though some centers are still getting in. Like, so it's a more up and down game. You're just kind of going out there, rolling the ball out, and having a good time. And look, I love it. Honestly, the only thing that I wish and they've actually changed the rookie game where it's now U.S. versus the world. They have the foreign players versus Americans. The only thing that I really wish that they had was a game of 21. Like if they just got if they got all the gunners, and there are a ton of gunners in the NBA. So just give me J.R. Smith, give me Deion Waiters, give me all the gunners in the NBA and throw them in the game of 21. They don't want to pass anyway. So that would be my biggest thing with that. But they've really turned the NBA All-Star, and they've turned it into a week now. They've given them a real some real time off, especially with this long NBA season. So I love to see it, and it's pretty much the only All-Star game I watch on a regular basis.
Good stuff. Well, let's slide on. We're not going to spend too long on it because the season hasn't started yet. But Major League Baseball, Max Scherzer.
Yes.
Washington Nationals give him a $210 million contract. What's that all about, man?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, because he's just on the surface, he's a power pitcher in his mid to late 30s. So usually that's not the kind of guy you want to invest this type of money, this type of time into. Now, the payment's going to be deferred over multiple years, so it's not going to hit them all at one time. But good gracious, that's a lot of money. They've got, and especially considering that the Nationals, there have been whispers, there were a few reports saying that Steven Strasburg might actually be on the market, and whether or not he's getting traded or signed or what. So that's their whole pitching situation is going to be a lot of fun to watch. They've got some great pitchers. They got Fister, they got Zimmerman, so they've got plenty of talent there. It'll be interesting to see if all those guys stay on for the duration. But with that crazy amount of money, I think that it's apropos that came down about a few days ago, because Bud Selig actually steps down from his position as commissioner tomorrow. And there's been a lot of talk about him, about his legacy, even while he was still sitting in the big chair, in terms of what his legacy actually is. And look, you can say a lot of things about him. Yes, he did preside over the steroid era from the 90s to 2000s, sure. And that's going to be a black mark that he's always going to have to live with. But he was also commissioner. When he first came into the league, the league was making about $1 billion annually in revenue. As he's leaving, it's about $10 billion. So he's had a real solid effect. He instituted revenue sharing, and so you see teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Kansas City Royals, you see them starting to get involved and starting to make postseason runs. He introduced the wild card, where you have the 3 divisional winners, and then you have the 2 next best in each league face off in a 1-game playoff, which is really, really exciting. It gives a certain amount of suddenness to a game without a clock, which is pretty cool, which is really what makes playoff baseball some of the best sporting events that you'll see. They did have the 1994 strike. He's had a lot of ups and downs in his commissionership, but I think overall, you have to tip your hat to him, because he's made a real financial difference in that league.
Excellent. Probably our final vibes, the sports vibe piece for this first edition, and a lot of people may not have noted this story, but if you follow basketball, college or pro, announcer Greg Anthony was arrested last weekend in regard to being involved in a prostitution ring. Now, I think 2 things I want to get your take on here is, first of all, the actual arrest itself, and also what sort of standards should we hold sports announcers, you being one of them? What sort of standards should the public be holding them to? Because the public certainly holds their athletes to certain standards, allegedly. Should we be holding announcers to the same standard?
Well, as it talked about the rest, he got popped for solicitation of a prostitute. Everything obviously is alleged until he's proven guilty in the court of law. So, innocent until proven guilty. It's definitely a bad look if for no other reason than it seems like you were in the wrong place at the wrong time at the very, very least. I have and we've talked about this a little bit before in your show. I don't really feel comfortable when celebrities or athletes are held to a higher standard. While they have a specific skill that has been highly monetized, it doesn't make them any different in terms of the people that they are. Everybody struggles with this. And look, we're talking about the world's oldest profession, okay? So, he's not the first, nor will he be the last to allegedly engage in this. But I think that people should really just understand that athletes and entertainers and people in the public eye, in front and behind the camera, are just people. They have the same misgivings, they have the same weaknesses, they have the same strengths of everybody else. They just happen to have a skill that is held in high regard in this society. And so I think I think it will behoove everybody to treat people, regardless of how famous or infamous that they may be, treat them all the same.
anything we should be looking forward to over the next few days in regards to the world of sports? I know, yeah. Well, how was your boxing match last week, by the way?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because Deontay Wilder and Bernard Stavern, they got into it. Deontay Wilder is kind of the most recent American heavyweight to really make some noise. He's undefeated. He's got a ton of knockouts. But what was most important this last Saturday was the fact that he went 12 rounds, first time in his career, and he boxed for the duration. Stavern has got a chin. Stavern is a legitimate heavyweight. He was the WBC heavyweight title holder for a reason. And Deontay Wilder, to his credit, continued to box and box and box. He controlled the ring, controlled the pace. He controlled that entire match, won easily in a decision. So if you're looking forward to Deontay Wilder perhaps fighting Klitschko, who is the unified heavyweight title holder, maybe fighting him in the future, it gave you a little bit more support to say, you know what, this guy might actually be able to move forward and really fight in the bigger stages. He's not just a one-punch knockout guy. He's a guy that can really box and has really honed his craft. To that point, I talked about him last week. This week I'm going to hit you with some more boxing. I'm just going to force this boxing down your throat. I'm just going to do it.
No problem.
Brandon Rios and Mike Alvarado. Now this is their third time fighting. This is a trilogy, and for boxing heads, this trilogy is akin to a Ward Gotti sort of fight. These guys are just flat out warriors. Rios took the first fight TKO late in that fight, inside fighting the entire time. You could have put that fight in the phone booth and they would have never noticed. Then you got the second fight where Alvarado, still a fighter, still a warrior, but he started to display a little bit more boxing technique. And so he was able to control the pace and really got Rios out of his comfort zone, where he started to move around the ring, pot shot, shoot the jab, and move, and it completely flustered and flummoxed Rios for the duration of that fight. Now this third fight, you're going to see two of these guys get right back into it, and I'm really, really excited, because you can't have two guys that are this strong, that are this mentally and just such tough competitors. You can't put them in the ring together without there being some fireworks. I'm absolutely looking forward to this. It's Saturday night on HBO. You should really check it out if you have the opportunity.
Well, there we go. Brandon getting his boxing vibe in, and make sure he doesn't leave it out at any cost. But hey, man, thanks for making the first edition of the Sports Vibe happen. Looking forward to doing many more. Any parting shots you have for our audience before we let you go?
While I'm a diehard UNC fan, Mike Krzyzewski's going for his 1,000th win in Madison Square Garden versus St. John's. Look, I don't. As I said, I'm a Tar Heel forever, but you have to give it up and give him the proper due between all the things that he's done at Duke, all the wins he's compiled, the summer games with the Olympics, he and Colangelo, what they did kind of to put America back on top. You gotta get your hats off and give him his due credit and kudos.
Excellent. Well, that's it. And I'm a big fan of Mike Krzyzewski. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to meet him. He came up to Toronto. This is back in the day where Nike used to have their coaches clinics on tour, and they came up to Toronto. And he was there, and he spoke for 3 hours. And believe it or not, he only spent 1 hour talking about basketball. The rest of the 2 hours he spent about relationships. And I'll never forget the way he responded to one question, especially someone asked him, Coach K, when do you know you've done a good coaching job? And he said, I know I've done a good coaching job when I see my players coaching each other.
Yeah, I've heard that his ability to relate to people is probably his greatest gift, even past the basketball. His ability to really really make you feel like you're being heard and really communicate with you I've heard that's actually his best trait.
Yeah, I've never forgotten that quote. And also, everyone who wanted an autograph from him at that clinic, he autographed every basketball. He stayed and did all that. So much respect to Coach K. I hope he gets his win. He'll get his 1,000th win. Hopefully, by the time we do another Sports Vibe, he'll have it. Well, that's the first edition of the Sports Vibe. Thank you for watching. Whether you are watching live or you're watching on the replay, there'll be many more to come. If you want to touch base with Brenden, how can they do that?
The best way and the easiest way is just on Twitter. That's WBHU alum. That's WBHUALUM. Just holler at me about anything sports related, and I will absolutely get back to you.
No problem. If you want to touch base with Dr. Vibe, You can do the easiest way, just go to the website, the drvibeshow.com, or on Twitter at drvibeshow. As always, you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles, and you're a solution for someone's problem. Shout out to Ms. Muse, wherever you are under that hoodie. God bless, peace be well, and keep the faith. Bye-bye.